Here's something that I've been thinking about today. I consider it kind of a happy thought. There's been a lot of discussions that I've been in about the history of D&D as it goes through the editions. And pretty much inevitably, whenever let's call it a adversary of 4th edition, you know the type. The people who don't like 4th edition and they don't like people who like 4th edition, that kind of person. A lot easier to find on the internet. That anonymity thing kind of makes people a lot more aggressive about hating on stuff. I'm not innocent of that. These sorts of people love pointing out that 4th edition almost killed D&D. It was such a failure of a game that Wizards of the Coast is never going to go back and blah, blah, blah. And, look at 5th edition. It's so successful, the most successful RPG ever because it's so much better. All right. So I think it's likely that 4th edition was not as financially successful as perhaps Wizards of the Coast wanted. I will grant that. Was that because it was actually unsuccessful, or was that because they had unrealistic expectations? I have heard this story that they kind of expected D&D at the time to overtake, what was it, like a third of the overall tabletop RPG market, or a half of the tabletop RPG, or no, actually it was to exceed the current tabletop RPG market. They wanted to take over with D&D, like more than all RPGs combined before 4th edition came out. That's how much they wanted to sell it. And that was just never going to happen, especially because it was released during a financial crisis, a global financial crisis. And from what I've heard, and I have seen some evidence to support this, it was kind of rushed out the door. And so it wasn't quite as polished up as maybe it could have been. All of these may be factors, or maybe it was just completely unsuccessful. Maybe people just largely didn't like it, and and Wizards of the Coast has realized that, like, okay, people don't like this kind of game, and we're not going to do that kind of game anymore. Maybe. I don't know. I don't have the numbers. I've never seen the numbers. I don't think anyone else has the numbers either. So I would take a grain of salt with whoever says that they know what happened. Because I was paying pretty close attention at the time, and I don't remember seeing any, like, sales figures. My sense of it was that 4th edition is the game that the current edition, and so that is what we play if we're playing D&D. Pathfinder came on the scene and became quite popular because people like the way things were, and Pathfinder 1st edition was more or less the way things were. Like, if Pathfinder hadn't come out, those people would have been playing 3rd edition. All right. There would have never been a majority, I don't think. My impression is that the majority of people moved on from 3rd to 4th. The fact that Pathfinder came out and was new was kind of a big deal. So anyways, I say all that to say this. D&D has clearly, I would describe it as reverted, or it has at least moved away from the 4th edition design principles. 5th edition, what little it has of 4E's DNA is pretty diluted. There's a lot of sort of half-aborted game mechanics that are inserted without any concern for, like, why these game mechanics originally existed. And so they don't serve the same purposes, and they kind of create more problems than they solve, And that could be a whole other video, like things that 5th edition carries over from 4th in a bad way. And it's basically everything that it takes from 4th. It misunderstands and misuses. So D&D clearly has not embraced 4th edition and has moved on and has become something entirely different. But RPGs as a whole, in the RPG community, the design community, the wider market, there's a demand for heavy tactical RPGs, which I would describe 4E as one. The first like major one. And I'm seeing, now that I have thought about it today, kind of a lot of RPGs that spin off from 4th edition. Lancer is like clearly has some 4E DNA in it. Icon is based on Lancer and therefore can trace its lineage back to 4th edition. What else? I had a longer list. I had a longer list than just the one. Matt Colville's new RPG that they're working on. I have been told that they consider 4th edition to be their North Star. Clearly using it as a guiding example of how a tactical RPG could be done. Now they're going to be making a lot of changes. I don't expect them to be making a 4E clone, but it is certainly there. Pathfinder 2nd edition, actually, it has like several, when I tried it, I was kind of surprised at how much it takes from 4th edition, especially considering like its roots are, we are not 4th edition. Like that was their main selling point back in their 1st edition. Like, we're not 4E. Next edition comes out like, oh yeah, we're kind of 4E now. Like these are all quite popular, quite I don't know if influential. I couldn't even say necessarily successful. Like Pathfinder 2nd edition is clearly successful, but Lancer, I don't know how successful they are. Everywhere that I have seen, people rave about Lancer, but I actually don't know what their sales figures are like. I couldn't begin to tell you, like, even to an order of magnitude, how many copies they've sold, or how many people consider themselves to be players of this game. Icon is still in playtesting. MCDM is still in playtesting. So these things, like, it's not that they're taking over the market. Maybe they will. Probably not. I suspect that sort of heavy tactical RPGs are always going to be a minority in the tabletop RPG market. But, like, there is a market for them. Like, there is a niche. There is a need for them, a call for them. There's a demand for this kind of game to exist and be developed and have new iterations and new versions. Otherwise, these games just wouldn't exist. And so I have come to the conclusion, having thought about these things, that while 4th edition has not very much influenced D&D, it has influenced the greater RPG community in a pretty profound way, and in a way that is continuing. 4th edition has a lineage of other games that look directly to it for inspiration. They're not copies, they're not clones, but they are, like, they definitely were inspired by, and they took a lot of design direction and design philosophy from 4th edition. And then I start to think about it, like, what does 5th edition have that's like that? You know, how many games are there that are inspired by 5th edition, that are not just, we use the 5th edition license and core engine? Maybe the Marvel Multiverse game to an extent. Like, I can see there being some shared DNA there. Maybe, but like, even that seems quite far removed. And I don't have any like hands-on experience with it. So maybe that's, all just like surface level stuff. Maybe, I don't know. But the main thing that I've seen that 5th edition has in terms of games based on it is video games, which is hilariously ironic, since 4th edition is sort of touted as the, like, oh, that's the video game version of D&D. You know, they made it like an MMO, blah, blah, blah. When, like, Baldur's Gate 3 is based on 5th edition, and 4th edition has no video games based on it. Nah, 4th edition is the video game one. So anyways, that's what I've been thinking about today. That 4th edition has this like profound and continuing influence on the RPG market and the environment of tabletop RPG development to this day, that I think is more profound and more significant than anything that 5th edition has been doing. because 5th edition kind of just is its own thing. When they move on to 6th edition, I don't think 5e is going to have anything going forward like this. You know, once this edition is done, I believe that it will just be done and gone, for one reason or another.